Side 4 etchings must die and burn in hell. We're talking about that today and other pet peeves in this Q&A video. Alright, this first question comes from Scott, and he writes, the popularity of vinyl has exploded in the last 10 years. This has been wonderful for longtime fans of the medium, and there is so much great music available now. Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, the price of vinyl has also increased dramatically in the last couple of years. Yes, again, absolutely. It feels as if the record-buying public is being taken advantage of. Ooh, okay, Scott, harsh words. Do you foresee a drop in the popularity of vinyl over the next decade, and will we ever see $30 records again? You know, this is something. This is something that has been, I know, talked about amongst record collectors for a while now, and the price of records has obviously gone up, seemingly exceeding the rate of inflation based on the principle, I assume, of supply and demand, right? They can't print records fast enough. There's a lot of demand for them. So as a result, whoever, the distributors, the record labels, can jack prices up for them, and people are willing to pay for them because they want to get their hands on it. And you combine that with this fear of missing out and record store day and limited editions and special editions. People are just clamoring to get this stuff. So it seems like there's no end in sight to these high record prices. Obviously, I would think there's a point where it plateaus at some point, but I don't think we're there, because records are crazy expensive. Like where I live here, a new record now is like 30, 35, 40, 45. I've even seen $50 records, back in Canadian dollars. But do I foresee a drop in the popularity of vinyl over the next decade? Honestly, I have no insight into that. If I had a guess based on what I'm seeing now, I don't think there will be a drop. It's just people seem to have this appetite for physical media. But I've been wrong before. Who knows? I wouldn't object if the popularity of vinyl decreased a bit, or there's more availability of records, something to get the prices down, because Scott says, will we ever see $30 records again? I'm not sure where Scott is located. I was in the U.S. recently. Yeah, in the U.S. And there still are a lot of $30 records in the U.S. So $30 U.S., yeah, $30 Canadian. I don't know, man. All right, Boglum Bonanza wrote, do you have any current pet peeves with the industry or vinyl community at the moment? Pet peeves, well, we just talked about one. Prices, what can you do? Slow pressing times, it's another pet peeve. You notice nowadays a band announces a new record and it comes out like 6 months later, and a large part of that, well, there's marketing involved, but a large part of that is the fact that it's taking like 6, 7, 8, 9 months to get records pressed. And what else? Any other pet peeves? I'm looking here at my notes. You asked about pet peeves with the vinyl community. I don't have any pet peeves with the vinyl community. People are going to do what they're going to do. So I'm one of those live and let live guys. So do whatever makes you happy, man. I got no pet peeves with the vinyl community. All right, this next message comes from Kevin Rumpelthal, who writes, is there anything worse than a side 4 etching? Put something on there. Live tracks, outtakes, demos, anything. This is a huge pet peeve of mine as well. I can't explain why. It just annoys me. I'll show you a couple examples of etchings and what we're talking about here. So this is this album from a band called Scorpion Child. Here's the record, and side 4, they don't have enough music to fill side 4, so they put these etchings on there. I don't know, maybe some people really dig these etchings and love them. They do nothing for me. Here's another example. This one's For All Kings from Anthrax. And again, side 4, if you can make it out, there's an etching, right? There's no music on there. There's nothing to play. It's just an image pressed into the record itself. So I was just looking up to see how long the Anthrax album is. It's 60 minutes. So that's too long to put on a single disc, so it makes sense to put that on 3 sides, I guess. I mean, they could have put it on 4 sides, but then you would have 15 minutes per side, or 3 tracks or something like that. And then I would be complaining, other people would be complaining that there's only 15 minutes in each side. And that's another pet peeve, getting up every 15 minutes to flip a record. First world problems, I know. There's much bigger things to worry about if that's the biggest issue going on. Because of course you put more music on a record and you compromise the sound quality and whatnot. So I'm not really sure why this is a pet peeve of mine, but it bugs me, man. I hate those I hate those etchings. And it's really a sign of the times. We got used to having albums running 60 to 75 minutes because those can all fit on one compact disc. Back in the day, records were 40 minutes, 45 minutes, the perfect length to fit on a two-sided LP. CDs came along. What do you do? How do you make this work? I'm not sure if there's an easy solution, but kind of like Kevin's idea of putting live tracks on there, outtakes, demos, some bonus items just to fill up that fourth side. All right, Graham Biggs writes, "Hi Frank, I have a few questions for you." All right, let's do this. He says, "What do you consider to be your prized vinyl possession over everything else?" This is an interesting question, and a question I had to think about for a while, and the answer is going to surprise you because it is not my most valuable record. It is not a record I listen to most often. I actually pulled up 3 records from my collection that probably have the most sentimental value. So the first one, Quiet Riot's debut album, 1983, and I'm picking this one because this is the first record I ever bought with my own money. I was like 10 or 11 years old. My parents took me to a downtown department store. I used my allowance I'd saved up, and I bought this record. I loved it at the time. Do I listen to it much anymore? Not really, but it has that emotional value. And 2 other ones, these are actually Beatles records. You guys know I'm not the biggest Beatles fan in the world, but these were my mom's records. This one has her initials on it, AZ. Because back in the day, when you bring your records to a party, people would initial their records so that people knew who they belonged to, and you could bring your records home. So this copy of Abbey Road was hers, as was this copy, Beatlemania, with the Beatles. So for the sentimental value, those are probably the records in my collection that mean most to me. I got some other ones in there. They're my dad's as well. So all those kind of records, right? I love the stories. My wife bought me a Kiss record, Kiss Alive, in 2009. That was a Father's Day gift. All those kind of records with the stories and the emotional attachment mean the most to me. Okay, what else did Graham write? What do you class as the ultimate horror movie in your opinion? Halloween 1978. Scariest movie. Probably because I saw it when I was a little kid, but just such good memories of that movie. Ultimate horror movie. What was your favorite gig you've ever been to on a scale of 1 to 10? That's a hard one. Probably first concert I ever went to, Judas Priest with Bon Jovi opening, 1986, Turbo Tour, Fuel for Life Tour. I was just a little kid. I was 12 or 13 years old. I still remember Winnipeg Arena. We were 16th row on the floor. I went with my dad and my friend Chris. Changed my life, man. I loved it. Other than that, a lot of my favorite shows have been bar shows. I love bar shows or club shows, that kind of thing, right? It just seems so much more personable. I mean, the band is right there in your face. I've seen some great bands in the bar. Reverend Horton Heat, Killer Dwarfs, the Donnas, Wasp. On my list, I put Nickelback because I saw them it was like 2000. They're just about to become huge, and they're playing this little bar down the back lane from where I lived at the time. It was the Osborne Village Zoo, and there's this buzz about the band, so I went to check them out. That place was packed. It was way over fire code regulations. There's such a buzz about the band, and like a few months later, they're the biggest band in the world. So they actually put on a really good show in that club. So yeah, those are some of my favorites. Terry wrote, "What are your thoughts on audiophile pressings, particularly the one-steps? Do you have any?" He says, "I have quite a few audiophile releases in the $40 to $60 range, and they sound great, but I can't justify $125 for a single album." I hear you, Terry. I don't go for the audiophile pressings either. I mean, the most audiophile I would get would be the Mobile Fidelity releases, but the one-steps and just anything, a single LP selling for $125 US. Even more expensive here. You got to do the conversion and shipping. I can't do it. Just in my mind, there's this point of diminishing returns, and with a $125 album audiophile pressing, using the gear I have, that's key. Using the gear I have sound 5 times better than the $25 regular pressing. I highly doubt it. Maybe if I had a ton of cash to burn, I'd experiment more in that, but I haven't gone down that road at all. I don't expect I will in the near future. Eric wrote, "I have 2 questions. What is your ultimate grail records?" You know, I used to have a list of the grails, the records, the grails. I don't love that term, but grails. You know, the sought after records that you really, really want. And I managed to scratch most of them off the list. I had a couple left. One being Van Halen Balance, and I just recently got that box set with a recent reissue. It's not an original pressing, but it's good enough for me. And the other one still on that list is a leather pressing of Motley Crue's debut album, Too Fast for Love. And I had one in my hand at a record show in North Dakota like 6 years ago. It was a second pressing, and it was $110 in VG Plus condition. And I thought in my mind I couldn't justify it. Now I'm kicking myself because I'll never find it at that price again. And I've done that a number of times over the years with Grail records that I just put back. I've learned my lesson. If you see a record on your wish list, grab it, man. Grab it. You can always sell it down the road. Eric Smith also writes, how did the 8-track collecting go? So a viewer sent me an 8-track player, believe it or not. I was very grateful for that. And an 8-track and some 8-tracks. Another viewer sent me some 8-tracks. And I kept all the 8-tracks that people sent me. But to be honest, and I still have the 8-track player here down on the shelf, I haven't listened to 8-tracks in a while. Partially because time. I don't have the time to fully get into another format at the moment, and there's just so many options: vinyl, streaming, cassettes, CDs, right? So I've stopped buying 8-tracks, but I still have all the 8-tracks I had, and I still have the player. John wrote, what is your best sounding vinyl album? It's such a simple album. It's not an audiophile pressing. It's a regular, original Canadian pressing of David Bowie's Let's Dance album. And it just sounds amazing. I can't tell you how good this sounds. A lot of that has to do with the way the album was recorded and mixed and mastered. I've also heard an original US pressing, and it sounds equally as good. And out of curiosity, I bought a reissue of this that came out a few years ago, and it just sounded flat. It sounded dull. It sounded lifeless in comparison to the original, which just sounds so good, man. Fills the room, just this huge soundstage. So I think that speaks to the fact that you don't have to invest hundreds in like a one-step audiophile pressing when there are some easy to find, inexpensive original pressings like this one that sound amazing. And Rod, Happy Hippie the Vinyl Guy, wrote, have you ever had any homemade, I mean real homemade Tennessee moonshine? I've been to Tennessee, I've been to Memphis, I've driven throughout the state, but I have never had real Tennessee moonshine. I've had moonshine back in the day. I dated this girl, and her family were all farmers out in a rural area here, and she warned me when I go there, they all have these stills and all make moonshine. They're gonna make me drink it. And she hyped it up so much, I was actually getting kind of nervous about going through this initiation of sorts. And I'll tell you, I did try it, and you could probably peel the paint off a Pinto with that stuff. So I have had moonshine that's real homemade Manitoba moonshine, but I've never had real homemade Tennessee moonshine. Is that kind of like the stuff the Dukes of Hazzard used to make? All right, 33ers, how would you answer the questions posed in today's video? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments below. As always, I'm grateful for you watching. Have a great rest of the week. Until next time, keep on spinning.